Well, we got a very special episode tonight on Aces and Eights, and letting everyone know that this is an affiliation of the Psychic Realm podcast with Angela DeCipio as well, that often airs on Thursday nights. So on Aces and Eights tonight, we got a pretty amazing crew assembled here, and we are going to speak about haunted homes, haunted houses, and what we're going to speak about is it the grounds? I mean, is it the grounds under the house that's attracting ghosts? Is it the house, itself? Is it an object in the house that's attracting the spirits? Is it someone in the house attracting the spirits? Did someone die there previously? Or was someone followed there from another home? Or was it a case of worked with the Ouija board and opened up a lot of open doors? I think a lot of us have a lot of different ideas and thoughts about haunted houses. I know I've had to clear some haunted homes. The one that I worked on actually was sitting on a land that had a very terrible massacre on it. And her whole home was just filled with spirits and things being knocked off the walls, things falling around, havoc everywhere. And it wasn't until we were able to literally clean off every single person involved in that massacre did that stop happening. And this was an American Indian massacre at the time. And so we really had to do in my case, I had to really look at who was there, why they were there, and really look into a lot of the mediumship ability as taxed as it can get. Because when you are reading that kind of huge type of energy and that type of thing coming in, and even looking at the home and seeing what's going on, I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do it. I really wasn't sure. It wasn't until I was able to clear the massacre itself that I was actually able to clear off the whole house. But clearing them off one at a time wasn't happening. I had to actually clear the massacre itself. So that is just one very small example of what can happen. So I'd like to speak with each and every one of you with your experiences and your thoughts about haunted homes, your own experiences of dealing with them, and maybe you've had a ghost in your home. Maybe you've had some weird things happen. I have certainly had spirits come into my house. Other things that we might want to look at is, are these forces demonic? Are they coming through portals? Are they appearing through a portal in the home, such as in the Amityville horror, that there was a portal in the basement and things were continuously coming through? The other things we might want to speak about are jinns. I hear that jinns are much more powerful than spirits and incredibly hard to get rid of. And if so, what are they? What is a jinn? So we've got a lot to talk about tonight, and I think we'll just have a lot of fun throwing a lot of ideas about, throwing in your own experiences. I know Anthony has certainly had quite a few. I'm sure he's going to have a lot to talk about.
I like the way you say that and laugh, Shirley.
It is nervous laughter, so don't even worry about it. I'm laughing with you, not at you. Anyway, I am the host, Shirley Bolstok. I run the Activate website. I work at the 8 activations. I am a psychic and a medium, and I am the host for tonight's show. So let's get introductions to each and every one of you. What do you do? As we have one of the coolest, most diverse crew I think I've been able to assemble. So MaryAnn, I'll start with you.
Well, I'm MaryAnn Howard. I am a working mom, grandmother now. I have a four-year-old granddaughter, and I'm also now an author. I've been writing about the death and replacement of Paul McCartney, along with my co-author Ann Walsh.
Well, I guess you would have to have some kind of contact from the other side if that was the case, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, I've heard from Ann Walsh, and she says that sometimes she swears that the boys are around and knocking stuff around and following them around to work and strange things, like I don't know, I think it was a paper thing where the papers were flying off, or where
Yeah.
things keep going around and round and around, and she gets these little signs that
She gets signs. She feels her head. She feels her hair, I think, move from what I've heard.
that
And then
doesn't
of
say it,
course,
right?
you know, she gets her inspiration sometimes where it's just all of a sudden, I know what we're going to do in the next chapter, and I'm like, okay, what's that? So
this book was written so quickly, so I really think
so quickly.
they had medium contact.
Well,
I believe not everybody agrees that I don't think it's the same Paul today that was original, but not everybody sees it that way. But her book does encompass the hoax that came out in 1969, and that is what her book is about, you know, and it is historical fiction.
Fiction.
Mm-hmm. And reading the book, you can decide for yourself, you know, if this is something that makes sense to you. And
we've had so much put into the book as it relates to beetle history, factual information, lots of references, but what we also feel happened, and bringing in some other situations that we're finding out now and believing that it happened back then, as far as the child sex trafficking and things that were happening on that end. The New World Order.
Very powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. What they did in the music industry and have continued to do has, you know, come forward. It's even just expanded what Paul went through in them trying to get him to comply versus what's going on now. They're actually just visually showing you the demonic.
Got it. Well, we'll talk more about that too.
Yeah.
We'll definitely talk more about that.
You want me to share my little electric charging thing here I have for my Paul thing? One of my favorite songs since I found out about Paul's death is Here, There, and Everywhere. It talks about the relationship and death, but it's your undying love. You're always there, here, there, and everywhere. So it was Thanksgiving this year. The book had been out 3 or 4 weeks, and my phone, I had it scrolling so it would just play random on my what do you call it, my channel. It would just play random, so it came on to Here, There, and Everywhere. It played for 5 hours.
Wow.
5 hours straight. I didn't do that. I wouldn't have known how to do that, but yeah.
And it was here, there, and
Here, there, and everywhere.
And you couldn't get rid of it. I
didn't want to get rid of it. I was happy to let it play as long as it wanted to play.
You know, I definitely think that spirits come through electronics. And I often hear people have things unplugged.
Yeah.
Their batteries are out of it. And I know my nephew had a doll that had no batteries in it. And it just lit up all by itself and just kept walking and talking, and it just kind of blew him away. So.
Yeah, stuff is strange. I was actually, and I think I shared this with you earlier, Shirley, but we didn't talk about it. I had a dream last night about my phone, and I picked up a phone that had George Harrison's picture on it, but nobody was around, and his phone was just laying there. And the next thing I knew, my phone was gone, but my case was there, and it has Paul's picture on it. Without the phone. And the next thing I knew, my phone was waking me up. And I was just like, okay, that was a little freaky. But I don't know what that was. It's just,
somebody wanted to be on the front of your phone. I think that's what's really going on.
It was a little synchronism of something's going on with my phone, but it's electronics. And so when you sit there and think about that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah. We're going to talk a lot about that.
I'm sure everybody else can contribute to the electronics.
Yeah. Justin, introduce yourself and tell what you do.
Yeah, so my name's Justin Carpenter. I like to say that I see the highest expression of every soul, system, and situation, and I like to guide people towards that reality. So I really enjoy. I'm a truth seeker, and I love taking the micro to macro approach of seeing each and every soul as we're walking around, recognizing that we all are all children of God, and I use the term God, but God doesn't really care what you call him. It's the one infinite consciousness that we're all tied to, and just helping people realize that they are beautiful, magnificent representations of this one infinite consciousness, and we're all playing a role. We're all playing a role within this. And so taking a big picture look from that perspective and seeing the truth that has been so carefully and um, carefully manipulated and hidden away from us, and bringing us back to that one central truth that we need to get all back to, so that we can creatively manifest in the most abundant way possible. So whatever sort of avenue that portrays itself on a regular basis, that's where I'm going to be. But it's very fluid, and it changes every day. But I run the channel on YouTube, Wandering Toward Truth, and within that we kind of take a pretty holistic look at looking at our health, the health of our body, and the way that we fit into this world, and how we can really step into this ascension path and recognize that this is the one true story that is playing out, and this is the same story that's told in all ancient texts, and how we can all find this one common thread that's running through all of this truth, and weave it together into what we're here to do. So yeah, I really enjoy that topic, which is everything. So that's me.
No, that's just a beautiful way to experience life. Justin, I'll be really interested to see what you think, that if these are lost souls, lost spirits, or if you think they're spirits at all that are, among us, that things are happening with. I know there are people that say, in that beautiful outdoors and in the forest, that they run into some pretty weird stuff. So we could talk about haunted houses, but I've heard of people running into spirits in the forest, seeing things that they never seen before, seeing what they thought might have been Sasquatch, what they might have been an angel, even leading them home if they got lost somewhere, and they got taken back, or they meet somebody that they used to know, and they think they're fine, and then they find out they died like a year ago, this type of thing. So yeah. I would be real interested in your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Do you want me to dive into that now, or
sure, why not? We'll get to each of us, and then we're all going to smash in there and then jump in the pool and go for it.
Yeah. So so it's just to kind of the holistic view of my take on spirits and ghosts and things of that nature. I truly feel that we are all powerful projectors of consciousness. Like we're all manifesting things very powerfully in how we project, and we've kind of forgotten how powerful we are and what we do put out on a regular basis. So I see spirits and jinns and things of that nature as sort of bands of consciousness that we're portraying, and that we actually solidify by having multiple people portraying that same and projecting that same band of consciousness out there. So I don't necessarily see them as entities that are separate from us, but they're manifestations of our consciousness that we're projecting out into the world, and they do actually physically affect the world around us. And so the more powerfully that we sort of tune into those, the more powerful they become. And so that's where you can when you really get clear with this sort of white and black magic and how to play with this reality, you can dispel those creations of consciousness with the white magic, or you can bring about them and make them more powerful with the black magic. But the black magic is only effective if you are using it to someone that's already got those fears sort of embedded within their own consciousness. It doesn't work if someone, and that's where they specify, like in the Bible, it's like putting on the armor of God, because if you have the armor of God, if you recognize that nothing can affect me if I wear this, then none of that black magic can actually affect you. So that's kind of my view of ghosts. I don't see them as necessarily separate entities that are conscious in and of themselves, but they are just projections that we are placing in this reality to play with, and they're here to teach us certain things and to give us alternate perspectives. But that's kind of my holistic view of it all.
No, that sounds interesting. I'd be interested in your view too, and we'll come up with it, such as objects that seem to be possessed by more what they call demonic forces, or homes that have more demonic forces in them. What you might think actually would be going on in that house.
We're doing that. Like we can do that with what it's the force is real. It's very powerful.
Got it. Caroline, please introduce yourself. And
thanks. Thank you for inviting me on. I'm Caroline Oceana Ryan, I'm a paddler. I channel a wonderful group of higher beings called the Collective, and they are angels, ascended masters, Fey elders, fairy elders, earth elements, galactic or ET, brothers and sisters. So quite an interesting group, probably thousands of them, and ranging in, you might say, ranging in empathy energetically in terms of how.
You're cutting out just a little out. You might want to range your mic just a little bit, Carolyn. There we go.
There's been a power outage in my building, so my area. So,
yes. Good day to hit, right? I have her messages are beautiful. I've just seen incredible messages come through her that are uplifting, that are and they're not like these drippy dear ones. We are gathered here. You know, you ever heard those kind of things that are just so general? Dear ones, we love you all, and we are, you know, and it's that kind of generic thing that you could have typed up and just kind of ran every month and changed a word here and there, and it would have been the same kind. You know, she actually brings in very profound and very amazing messages. So go on, Carolyn.
I appreciate that, Shirley. When I first started channeling the collective in 2014, I was very clear with them that I needed to speak very specific practical issues in life, and they offer us information that is really very relevant to where we are now on the planet, which is in crisis mode.
Yeah.
Things happen, so many in very, very intense challenges.
Yeah, that's really true.
Ghosts, dark entities. You know, this is a whole area that has fascinated me for years, and I don't walk around thinking about it a lot because I don't want to manifest that very actively in my life. I have lived in so many places that were haunted that I come to realize, well, most places are haunted when you think about it, because there's just spirits, you know, wandering everywhere. Maybe they saw the light and they refused. Maybe they didn't see the light because they were so convinced no such thing exists. But they left their bodies. The body is dead. I believe they often go into other people's bodies and take residence there, or they're wandering around a house or property, and for them, time has not changed. This is where they used to live, or this is where they, you know, want to be, and they can't forget it, and they just, I do see them as sort of not going to grow, it's going to degrade over time unless we get them into the light, usher them on over to the other. They've gotten into the last few years studying Bonnie Sarato's work at spiritualacceleration.com, and a few other people's work, and yeah, it's a huge area. And you know, our friend Dave Barnett knows a great deal about dealing with demons and dark entities, and it's just they're coming forward now because they're losing their foothold, and they're being ordered by the dark lords of the lower realms. You hang on no matter what, the earth is ours. But with these higher energies coming in, they're finding it pretty impossible to hang on and to influence us the way. So I is ending, but boy, they are fighting.
Yeah, there's a big fight going on because they say, you know, we don't fight flesh and blood. We fight principalities. You know, that is the thing out there that I think we're all up against, and in a very huge way. And this is where it's so important that we all band together and take control of that, and take control of our minds. I do know that when there is spirits in the home, and I have had that happen where there's a spirit in the house, sometimes I can take on their mindset, or I can feel what they're feeling, or I could feel what happened in their, you know, when they were alive. Now, that might be one way of reading them to see what happened, but you got to watch that it doesn't penetrate, that you actually take on their whole principality of, you know, of that mindset, and wind up being kind of taken in by what's going on. You have to be very careful to keep yourself separate, especially when you're doing meeting work, or you're doing work, or you're dealing with spirits that are around. So yeah, we'll definitely find out what happened in your house and what you think, and we'll go for it. Anthony, please introduce yourself. And I know that you've had tremendous experience with this type of thing. So
I have. I am a full-time psychic medium. I've written several books, including 3 books on the afterlife. One of them is a bestseller. It's We Are Never Alone, Reassuring Insights from the Other Side, as well as, excuse me, little hoarse today.
That's all right.
Well as
We won't make you talk too much.
as well as a book, Harold the Haunted Doll, which is a doll I acquired on eBay in 2004. And I still have to this day. And in my opinion, it's probably one of the more terrifying dolls, or, the entity it houses is one of the most terrifying dolls in the world. I've also written a book entitled Journal of a Haunting, based on my experiences in a house that I lived in Castle Rock, Colorado. And excuse me. Interestingly enough, I just want to say very quickly that my partner at the time did not believe I could actually talk to dead people until we'd been living together for about
Skeptics.
4 months. We were watching TV. I had my head on her lap, and I looked at her and said, "Who's Shane?" And she's like, "Who?" And I said, "Shane, wait a minute. He's telling me he was your high school sweetheart, and he died in a boating accident." And, her eyes got even bigger. And at the end of that whole thing, when she finally became a believer, I said, "We've known each other for how long? And you saw people come to my home. You saw me give them readings. What were you thinking?" She said, "Well, I guess anybody can believe anything." But anyway, at one point, her best friend lived about 4 houses up in the cul-de-sac. And they're having a little neighborhood meeting regarding you-know-who. The subject was, "Have you noticed people drive up to his home, stay for about an hour, and then drive away? You think he's a drug dealer?" And my neighbor looked at them and said, "Oh, don't be silly. He's not a drug dealer. He talks to dead people." It was like, oh.
So he became a drug dealer at that point, right?
Well, it was almost entirely non-denominational Christians. And I was fully expecting them to burn a cross on my front lawn. They all stopped talking to me after that, but anyway, but I had a tremendous amount of experiences. And that's what my book, Journal of a Haunting, is about. We literally experience something virtually every day. Voices, apparitions, the whole 9 yards. And I used to challenge people. You don't believe in ghosts? Come on, we have 4 bedrooms. Spend the night. Tell me what you think in the morning. I only had one person take me up.
And?
Well,
we'll probably get into that one.
Yeah,
it's like the Stanley Hotel. They'd stay in those rooms and they'd scoff and they come running out, running down the hall screaming, "Oh my God, get me out of that room."
Yeah, the person who did spend the night was actually a member of my group, Rocky Mountain Ghost Hunters Alliance. And she was the only one. I was out of town doing a TV show back east. And she was the only one willing to stay. And then the next morning, the stories they both had, sent chills up my spine. I mean, I was on the phone going, "Are you serious? Really?" So I can share some of those stories a little bit later. If you like.
Yeah, I'd love to hear those. Okay, Go Intuition. This is Ann and Greg Salisbury, Greg Myers and Ann Salisbury, and they also are the author of books. They are mediums. They're psychics. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little more about you. And
well, thank you, Shirley, for having us here tonight. It's wonderful to be with such a good group. We wrote a book called Journey to Heaven, an Insider's Guide to the Afterlife after my mother died, and she'd agreed before she died to write it with us. And so we kind of tracked her on the other side to see what was going on. And we've done, mainly in our practice, we talk to people who've crossed over for the loved ones on this side. We also help people cross who are sick. And then we do business consulting using our intuition and psychic readings and pet psychic readings. We volunteer for the animal shelter for 10 years, helping those animals find homes.
Nice.
So we do a variety, and it's a lot of fun. And we've found that with the things you call ghosts, it's like energy that's trapped. It's like the person has fractured. And so we just assist them in regaining it. We go into a place and clear the energy so that they don't have the negative experiences anymore. If someone's aligned and their energy is flowing, then off they go to have a good time, and then they leave people here in their homes alone, and life is good. So, yeah. You?
I'm Greg Meyer.
Yeah, you.
And really my journey started in business. I started developing my intuition, which is kind of strange, doesn't seem to fit, but that's how I kind of started developing, like I knew things. And it really helped me in sales. But then I took to a point where I've had enough of the corporate world, then started doing this when I met Ann. I've been doing this full time for 23 years now. Wow. And where Ann sees a lot more, I see energy. So I help people.
Spirits are energy, that's for sure.
Right.
And so I can see energy where it's blocked in a person and help move that out. And then most of what we do with ghosts is on the healing side, what we can do to help them either move on or have a little better situation where they are at that point in their evolution. So we do it together, usually in a place that has some extra energies. And then she can see what they're saying or hear what they're saying and what they're doing, and then I move the energy out. So it's a good team, and then we do individual clients ourselves also.
Awesome. Could you talk about your books that you have written?
The first one is called Eureka, Understanding and Using the Power of Your Intuition. That gives a lot of tools for accessing intuition, how to know what it is, what it isn't. I used my doctoral research to build that book, and it's very helpful, and you can use it. We've used it teaching intuition at the graduate level. We also have a school, so we teach that there too. Our second book was The Path of Intuition.
I read that one too. Okay.
What was it? The Path of Intuition.
Your Insider's Guide.
No. Your guidebook to, God, I don't know.
It's blank, but you intuit the whole book. It's great.
Yeah, anyway, we did win some awards on our books, and because we put a lot into it, we wrote them for teaching. As in, we want to help people learn how to access their intuition. So the first one is very kind of academic and how to apply it. The second one is a channeled piece on how, what is your intuition, really, what is it? And then the third was the book on the afterlife, and we have a few others in the works, but they've been in the works for a while, so we're just enjoying life.
Always in the works, you know that.
Well,
one of the things I was curious about that, there's a continual pattern with a lot of these homes that you go into that, seem to be having hauntings or seem to be having an issue. Do you notice that there's a common pattern? Like, is it sometimes a family member that's come in there, or do you feel it's somebody that's, died around the area? Could you tell me about some of the different types of experiences you've had that you think may have a commonality of that type of thing that is often, true in a lot of different haunted type of places or homes?
It's a variety. So, for example, one person, she hadn't been able to sleep in her home for 7 years. She'd done everything feng shui wise, spiritually, you name it, she'd done it. And I asked her, I said, there's a cool breeze blowing through your home. To me, it looks like a lot of dead people moving through there. Do you happen to live near a cemetery? What's, you know? And she's like, oh, no, I don't. And then she came back to me. We were at a conference together, so I was just answering her questions. And she came back to me a couple hours later and says, you know, there is a cemetery on the other end of the block. I just don't usually drive by there. I forgot. Yes, there is. And so we just defined her space for her so that they would go around her house, and then she slept. She told us the next day, oh my God, I slept for the first time. So that's, you know, that's when you're in an area where the land has a lot of energy in it, right? Kind of like when you're traveling in places that have ancient history, you can feel it in the ground.
Oh yeah, you can almost see it.
Yeah, there's been a lot that's gone on there. Other times we had a woman, I went to lunch at someone's house, and when I went in, the lights went on and off.
I've had that happen. I had these pots and pans on the ceiling in the kitchen going clink, 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 clink. I'm like, really, is this so mundane? Can't you do something different? Anyway.
They're like, you're here. And that person, the person who was turning on and off the lights, I said, you know, was there somebody who lived here before? Because she's really upset with you. And she keeps repeating, put the house back the way it was, you know. Turns out the new people at the house redecorated and redid the kitchen, and the person who died who used to live there wasn't very happy with that. And so she was bugging me to tell them to get their house back the way it was.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And I said, well,
because you probably figured she still lived there, right? And how dare you redo my kitchen, you know?
Exactly. These are not my colors, right? So,
yeah, wallpaper.
Yeah. So I said, you know, stop bugging me. If you're not going to change, you know, you are seriously dead. So get used to that idea. And if you can't, then just bug off, because I want to enjoy my lunch. And she's like, fine, you know. Well, then that night I come home, and I didn't bother to tell Greg what happened because I had a lot on my mind. I was doing a lot. And in the middle of the night, like at 1 a.m, our bedroom door blows open. Now,
calls you home.
Open. They come closed normally, right? If the air conditioning's going on or whatever. And I'm like, uh-oh, sorry, sweetheart. I forgot to mention I had lunch with a ghost today. And she's not very happy with me. But it turns out she wanted to make a change. And because I'm like, don't bug me unless you're wanting to go more to the light and integrate and move along. And she's like, I thought about it and I would like to do that. So we helped her out.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, you just communicate like you talk to anyone else. Yeah, absolutely.
Right, exactly.
Well, she probably couldn't take the wallpaper, you know. Get me out of this house! I hate fuchsia. Fuchsia's the worst. Yeah, I guess that. Yeah.
So we did an emergency session in the middle of the night and sent her off to light, and she never had any problem at the house again. So this lady was just trying to get our attention.
Yeah,
the ghost.
Yeah, because everybody, you know, all energy is meant to be integrated, like Justin was talking about. You know, everybody is wanting to move ahead into the light, even the dark side. They want to move ahead in their own little way. So, you know, the more we can all help that, the better, right?
Absolutely. And I totally agree. Well, it looks like all of us have had some pretty interesting experiences with that. So, you know what? I'm just going to kind of move around first. And I think I'm going to go with you, Anthony, because you've had some very interesting experiences as you got your journal. And I think that, you know, let's bring some of those up, and it'd be kind of fun for all of us to see what we have to add, what we think is may also be going on, although I suspect that you had a pretty good handle on it, but it'd be very interesting to comment on and kind of explore what happened.
Well, as I was saying, I was living in Castle Rock, Colorado, which is south of Denver. And brand new home, one owner. And I was living there with my partner at the time, Cheryl. And interestingly enough, ironically enough, things were going on. And I knew right from the get it was haunted, but I didn't want to say anything to her. Okay, primarily because she didn't believe, that sort of thing. And there were several things going on in her own life that she thought were actually the reason for what she was experiencing, but not talking about. Anyway, make a long story short, I would be in my office, typically around 5 in the morning, meditating, and I would hear somebody walking down the hall, and I would say, "I'm in here, honey," and the footsteps would stop. And this happened several mornings. And finally, I got up, walked out of my office, looked down the hall. It was almost like a maze. It was a rather large house. And I saw this woman passing between the dining room from the kitchen into the dining room. And then she kind of made a a right turn, and then disappeared. And it was just like, well, that's interesting. And because at that time I did, again, believe in ghosts, I was an active paranormal investigator. I'm no longer. Again, I didn't say anything to Cheryl because I didn't want to freak her out. But, things started happening. For instance, it was when Obama was running for office, and our living room, and actually I should say our family room, and the kitchen were adjoining. And sometimes I don't watch the news or anything like that, but sometimes I would have the elections or the campaigning things go on, and especially so she could watch it from the kitchen while she was making dinner. And the remote would be sitting on the table, and all of a sudden it would change channels, or it would start running up and down channels, or the volume would start going up and down. And I tried not to pay attention. And Cheryl looked at me and was like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Me? Nothing. Honestly, I'm not doing anything." And
when it comes to the remote, that's a home wrecker ghost. I'll let you know that right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, it was just crazy. Things like that started building up. One time, after she found out I actually can communicate with those who have passed on, I came out from one of my readings, and she had all the lights off except for one single light. And she said, "I thought, you've had a long day. You might want to relax." And I said, "Thank you." I sat down on the recliner, and again, only one light was on. TV wasn't on. And I looked at her after a moment, and she looked at me because we could hear a voice coming from the ceiling. Okay, we had theater speakers in the ceiling. We could hear a voice talking about his day and how he sat on the porch whittling and how it was a beautiful day, and he was going on and on and on. And she looked at me and said, "Did you leave the TV on in the master bedroom?" And I was like, "I just walked out of the office." But I got up, went to the master bedroom. Nothing was on, came back, sat down. And for about 20 minutes, we listened to this guy just talking to himself, almost as though he was talking to us and telling us about his day.
Yeah.
Just all kinds of crazy things. If you sat in the master bath, you could literally hear through the wall, typically a young boy and his father talking. I'll never forget, I distinctly heard at one point, "Come on, Dad, let's go." And then the father responding, "I'm coming." The only problem was I was the only one in the house. We heard that sort of thing all the time. But what happened was that we discovered, because I did bring in my group, Rocky Mountain Ghost Hunters Alliance, to do an investigation. I didn't want to do it because I live there, okay? And we found out that apparently it was built on a massive graveyard.
Oh,
and
boy.
that the people who were buried there died during the cholera epidemic. I don't even know what date it was. All right. But I was constantly ushering people out. In fact, the night that my group came, they all left. And the next morning, I was walking by the stairs leading down to the basement, and I looked down, and there was this young man, about 18, 19 years old, looking up at me, pissed off. Like, where did everybody go? And all of it, and the next moment, I got a phone call from one of the members of the group. In fact, the only one who ever spent the night, her name was Debbie. She said, did we leave anybody behind? And I said, what do you mean? She said, like a young man about 18, 19 years old? I said, yeah, as a matter of fact, I just saw him. How did you know? She said, well, we were talking, we all saw him, but nobody did anything about him. There was another time we were sitting there watching TV, and I think it was America's Got Talent. And I looked at Cheryl and I said, oh boy. And she said, what? And I said, a family just showed up. She's a family. And I said, yeah, there's a husband, a wife, a daughter, and a son. And for the next, I don't know, 3 or 4 days, we started tracking everything, which was, again, the basis of my book, Journal of a Haunting. Started tracking everything that was going on. And she went and was having Sunday brunch with a neighbor of hers, her best friend, who told everybody, who outed me, saying, oh, no, he's not a drug dealer. He talks to dead people. All right. And, she and this woman were talking, and the woman says, so is anything new happened in your house? And she's like, yeah. She started to describe the experiences that were going on. And the woman finished all the experiences she had. And Cheryl looked at her and said, how do you know that? And she said, oh, it's easy. They were living in my house, bugging me. Finally, I told them, listen, if you go 4 houses down, there's a party going on. There's a lot of you who like to hang out there. Go down and bug them.
Seriously. You should have charged them rent and they would have left.
It was
Party
that
favor.
kind of
So they just went down. That's funny. That's
it was that kind of house. It really was.
That's funny.
One time I opened up the pantry and I was looking for Girl Scout cookies. And all of a sudden I literally saw a whole slew. A young lady was like 17, 18 years old, and behind her were a bunch of kids. And they had died during that epidemic.
Cholera was huge. It was a terrible epidemic. Yeah.
Yeah. And so anyway, I crossed them over.
Good for you.
Something else happened, and something else happened. Finally, I'll tell you this real quick story. We had a dog named Prince Tahoe, a poodle, a toy poodle. And one day, Prince was running around the house, and all of a sudden he would stop, sit, and look. And then he'd start running around the house again, and then he'd stop, sit, and look. And
I think animals can see spirits. I think animals have that kind of intuition. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that night, I was brushing my teeth, and I said out loud, son of a bitch. And I stormed out of the master bath, went into the kitchen, and Cheryl's like, what's going on? And I said, you'll find out. And I went into the kitchen, and where I, was sensing he was. And I said, hey, listen, I want you to listen. Are you listening? And all of a sudden we hear this loud bang on the wall. Good. Do not scare my dog again. Do you understand? Right? And we had this conversation, and I was just like, next time, pick something up and throw it for him to chase. And I was thinking, what the hell am I saying? I
set yourself up.
Flying around the house.
They did it, didn't they?
Just miss my kids. But then,
yeah, I've learned don't dare them. Yeah. That's not a good
after that, I went back to the bedroom, and Cheryl told me she'd heard the entire conversation. But on my way back to the bedroom, I heard a young boy say, Mister, I'm sorry, mister. Yeah. Just, play nice next time. So,
one of the things that totally blows me away Why isn't it that real estate never lists a cemetery nearby, or even the fact they're built on one? It's always missing out of the brochures, right? The thing is, people always find out the hard way, when they get to these real estate. I know some people, they found out they had an old cemetery across the street from them, and all kinds of things started coming into their homes and happening. And the cholera epidemic probably took so many. I bet a lot of them didn't know they were dead. They had no idea. They're, time and space is all at once, when these spirits, are out there and they're around, and a lot of them don't realize they're dead. They think you might be intruding on their type of, territory, that type of thing. I found that out when I had a whole bunch of, Clear the Massacre, and then they all went up together. One of the things I find, in the 20th century, of course, with the onslaught of electronics, the onslaught with television, and you've got telephones and cell phones, we even have spirits calling cell phones. We start hearing about this type of thing. And you kind of have to wonder, before there's all brought in, what did they do? They probably just rapped a lot and, talk. But there's always a frequency. There's always a difference in frequency when spirits are around. And you can feel it. And they say, a lot of that colder frequency as you're walking through that, it's simply a difference in frequency. And that's why it feels cold to us. And we can feel that breeze, and we can feel it going. So I'd kind of be interested in talking to folks. And Caroline, I also want you to reveal how your haunted house, was very similar to Anthony's and some of the things you went through. But I'm also interested in each of you. And talking about frequency, obviously we had more of a recognition of them when the telephone, the electronics came in and the batteries came in, this type of thing. But, we've had ghosts a lot longer than we've had electronics. We've had ghosts a lot longer than electricity, but yet the ghosts light up. You hear spirits lighting up. So obviously they're taking on some kind of frequency in order to make themselves known. You hear that, you see the white lady coming down the stairwell, in some of these homes, or way back from, the old, 18th century homes, 19th century homes, where supposedly the hostess died a weird death, and you could see her coming down, the hallway. The thing that I always kind of wondered about, is that a hologram? Is that an imprint that happened because that person died a violent death? Or do we have a real actual spirit making themselves known and lighting themselves up and giving off that frequency? Or does this thing, we're communicating, we're kind of bringing that in on our own. So MaryAnn, I'm going to kind of start with you and ask you what you think.
On that aspect, I'm not sure. Maybe it's a little bit of both. We have imprinted images in our own head. If we're in a dream state, what are we really seeing? That's something that maybe we want to see versus what we actually do see. But I think I also agree with the frequency thing. We know we're energy, so we're going to go back to being energy. What were we saying before? We're not souls inside. How did I say that before? We're spirits inside a body instead of a body with a spirit. So we're going to go back to that energy source. If you can get your frequency up high enough, then you're communicating. I'm sure you all have really high frequencies. That's why you have those abilities to communicate, in my opinion.
I think it's a meeting of frequencies.
Actually. Yeah. They come down and you go up.
Yeah. I do. I think they find that way to communicate to us. I kind of often wonder too, some people swear there's orbs and very interesting things going on in their home and that they're claiming are galactic or aliens. Orbs are very fascinating, but, many people say that spirits will come in as an orb or, a light like that. And
right.
And I've seen hundreds of them in some homes.
In pictures. Yeah. I've seen orbs in a lot of pictures, but then it's like, okay, is that lens light refraction? But sometimes there's no, what do I want to say? Like light coming out of the lens or going in and the orbs are still there.
Mm-hmm. I've experienced that.
Yeah.
Justin, what do you think? Obviously, you've been listening very intently. So, your idea of Earth frequency, God frequency, the way things can manifest, maybe there's many worlds in one world that we just haven't discovered yet. Give me your thoughts on all this.
Yeah, well, I mean, because this whole experience, I mean, everything is now, our ideas of past and future and all of these are just constructs. The entire frame of the infinite consciousness is right now, always. It's God's eternal moment. So whenever we can sort of tap into the ability to transcend our body and our physical eyes and ears and our experience around us, we're able to kind of tune into different layers of this consciousness that's always playing out and seemingly, happening. So it's all happening simultaneously. So I think when we have these sort of paranormal experiences, it can be intentional or it can be accidental, but it's us just playing with those different bands, those different realms, those different frequencies. So you're tuning kind of like a radio station. You're playing around with the, because we are this antenna, this conscious little antenna that's floating around, and usually we're just tuned into this realm around us, this physical reality that's playing out in front of us. But we do have that ability to kind of step into another layer, and so that's where I see these sort of experiences playing out as you just tapping into that other layer of it and seeing it for what it is, because it's infinite. There's infinite possibilities at all times. There's no limit to it.
No limit to the
So, yeah.
communication. Yeah,
exactly.
that explains it pretty well. I like how you kind of combine altered states with interdimensional, that they're kind of pretty much the same
It's the
thing,
same.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, yeah.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Do you think that some spirits are, whatever, they're attracted to certain locations, to certain type of people, or just certain things that are more like themselves, or it's just a happenstance that just kind of, they're just around and we pick up on them?
I think they are attracted more in a sense that we are we're sort of creating and attracting them based on our state of being, and so therefore when we open ourselves up either consciously or unconsciously to that type of energy, then it can much more easily latch on to us and affect physical things around us, but also us and our mental state as well. So I do think it's very much something that you can train yourself and be adamant and having wards and protective barriers to where that can't happen unnecessarily. And I'm sure there are people, it's karmically tied as well. Like we come into this world with a layer of karma that we've got to work through. And so if part of my experience is to work through some sort of karmic repercussion of something that I might have, done, and I say past tense, even though that didn't really happen, but some part of my essence needs to overcome a lesson, then I might attract a sort of jinn or spirit or that layer of frequency to demonstrate and teach me something in that particular moment, because this whole experience is just a learning mechanism. It's just a way for us to expand and grow and continually evolve. And so everything that's happening to us is just an example. It's all happening for us. It's all to show us something, to get us to tap into and realize something that we might not have otherwise. So yeah, that's kind of a roundabout way of answering that question.
No, I think that's a good way. I know that I had a good friend, it was years ago, and when she was so full of grief when her brother died, it was complicated grief, and she wouldn't let go. I mean, it was like, she talked nonstop about her brother. All she talked about is she wished her brother was here, and it just went on. And next thing you know, things are being knocked around her house. Things are crashing. It's almost as though her grief was tying him here. It was holding him. And he really wanted to move on. But no, she didn't want to lose her brother. And she just hung on. And he was breaking more things in the house. And she goes, "Do you think my brother's haunting my house?" And I thought, oh no, this is not good. She'll think, well, he's living here now. This is wonderful. Who cares what he breaks, you know? And so she was going to hold on to him even more. I mean, he was trying to tell her to let her go. And I wound up having to talk to him myself and move him on. You know, I got him out of there and I got him moved on and I got him disconnected from her grief and told him, you're not responsible for what she's feeling. You're not going to fix it, you know.
Yeah, and with that, you know, I would even ask, like, was that actually her brother, or was that her recollection of her brother creating a fragment of his same frequency that's playing out in this physical reality? Because
Good
I don't
question.
really feel like you can bind a conscious being, like a sovereign soul,
Okay.
that, you know, I don't think that you could bind someone like that, but she could so powerfully create a manifestation that's identical to his energy, that's playing out in that same sort of way, to where it creates that sort of same sort of pattern. I mean, it's nuances. It might not necessarily matter as much as far as what we need to do about it. But it's
Yeah.
just kind of an interesting concept to dig into.
That is a good concept to get into. They might even be related. I do know that she told me that for some reason he stopped haunting that house. So whether I was able to get him or get that recreation of his energy and that frequency out, it seemed to do the trick. And eventually she did move on. But that's a really very good perspective, Justin, and I think a very interesting way of looking at it, and a very good way, you know, rather than it's here, you know, we get a lot of that kind of glamorous, you know, people like to glamorize, you know, hauntings, you know. There were some people, there was, and I know you're going to cringe at this, Anthony, because you've worked with the paranormal, you know, investigators. These people would call down a hallway, you know, trying to make the ghost angry or trying to upset them, you know, to try to get them to do some kind of paranormal activity in order to create something. It never came out well. It just never came out well. And I always thought, you know, with that kind of intention, that you just want glamour, you're going to get more than you bargained for. And it was just a real problem. They did get more than what they bargained for. Caroline, you lived in a haunted house. So tell me, what do you think was going on in there?
Well, there's been a series of them. I lived in my aunt's house in Brooklyn, which was about 100 years old. This is going back 20 some years ago. She died, and it had been a very unhappy family. Her spirit moved on, but I could tell that her father's spirit hadn't. And in the kitchen, just tell me how I was in the kitchen one time, standing right in front of me, demanding to know what I was doing in his house. Very angry. He was a very difficult, very angry man, highly abusive. And I didn't know at the time that you could actually speak to ghosts. I wasn't channeling other than to get answers for myself, for my own spirit. And
You're cutting out just a little bit. Try to move in closer to the mic. I know it's your power outage. It's not your fault.
I didn't understand at the time how to help him on. So I wasn't able to help him. And then I went from that to living in an apartment in Southern California, in Redondo Beach, for a few months before a friend's house, before I got a place of my own. And my friend wasn't there. She was out on a business trip, but I was there, and boy, was that place ever haunted. I mean, I could tell it was the spirit of a young man who died, maybe, you know, in an accident, died way too young. And he would do this obnoxious thing where he'd go into the wall where I was sleeping, and just as I was drifting off, he would crack the wall really loudly to wake me up. And I would be very annoyed, and I would start to fall asleep again, and then he would do the same thing. And one time I was in the living room, and he came and poked me in the as I decided to sleep downstairs. I thought that would be more peaceful. And he on the couch and poked me in the shoulder. And friends would say, "How come there was no window or door open?" But I felt one of my friends said she felt a cold breeze suddenly in the room, and I said, "Yeah, he walked in. I didn't want to alarm you." And he would walk in very, very slowly and creep toward me. And I would say, I know you're there. And I would feel almost like I was starting to be hypnotized, sort of almost put to sleep, because he wanted to go into my energies. I knew that. And I would say to him, you're not welcome here. You do not come into my energies. And finally, one night I got so fed up with him being so obnoxious. And I didn't yell it. I just thought it at him. I said, cease this immediately, or I will have you removed from here. And everything stopped from then on.
Yeah, he finally spoke up. Yeah.
That I couldn't help but move on. I was just at the time getting into what you would call, this is like 27 years ago. I was just getting into what people call now New Age, spiritual study. I didn't understand about the fact that people, by their own free will keep themselves stuck in a particular place for the right kind of how long. So now I do clearings to assist people, and they do say they feel a lot lighter because the entities fit in our energies. They will. I mean, I've heard that, for instance, when people get addicted to drugs or drink, move those entities out of them who love the drug or the drink, they will get over it. They will get past the addiction. So I'm just working on. I'm thrilled at the work being done, and I want to learn more about it. But yeah, oh gosh, I had a writer's residency in New York City in an area really kind of violent, and still was at times, in the 40s on the west side, Manhattan, and what they used to call Hell's Kitchen. And I was rectory of a very old church, and where I did my professional development work as a seminarian. And I would hear footsteps at night somebody coming up the stairs, but then they were going down again. Piano over there, that sort of thing. So
cool.
I just have experienced it over and over again in my life. And I absolutely agree that they're tied to the land. Even if it's not a question of what went on in that particular house, they can be tied to the land. There's no end of, as soon as I moved out west, I began to realize, I lived in Sedona for a while, it was just ridiculous what went on in that apartment. The bedroom door opening in the middle of the night, and my orbs everywhere in my room. And I began to realize that when white people moved out west, they just whatever they wanted with the land and had no respect for native burial grounds.
That's right. They didn't, and caused all kinds of trouble. Yeah, I agree.
The stupidity, the ignorance of it is astounding. So, I've just run up against one thing or another, and now, thankfully, these last few years, I've learned a bit about how to deal with it.
Energies. And
what else? There's often, where there are normal instances, there's often ET interferences as well. It's very interesting. You mentioned energy imprints, and when I lived in Los Angeles in the 90s, I lived in this area they call Los Filos, and every single time I walked past this particular point on this particular sidewalk, I would get an image of a young guy, a gang member, shot by the falling onto the sidewalk, dying every time. And that's to me. I didn't feel like
a little closer to Mike. Yeah.
I didn't feel like his spirit was still there, but I did feel like the energy.
Well, a hologram was there, something that happened. This is like, I hear this, like with history repeating. It's almost just like an imprint that they have heard Gettysburg, come back in on the land. They can hear the guns going. They can hear, things, men, running and screaming, and people shooting at each other, and, it felt so real to them. And of course, this would be the time and space at once. But it seemed to have an anniversary date. That on an anniversary date of a very specific battle, people would be able to hear the battle going on. They would even see that the spirits running on the land, which almost goes more to the types of holograms and that type of thing. And I think that, also I think spiritualism has changed. I do think that with the onslaughting, even with electronics, that music has become a big deal in the way spirits do communicate with us as well. Songs like when MaryAnn said, with she keeps playing the song over and over again. Sometimes people think of someone, then the song comes on the radio, or they hear the music in the distance, this type of thing. But I think that I find it very interesting that a whole battlefield could appear and disappear, and people would feel it, they would sense it, they could even smell it. How it could, penetrate time, space that way if it was kind of that serious. So I'm going to go over to you and Ann and Greg and get your thoughts on that type of thing as well, and then we'll make a few rounds here. Talk about.
Well, we've done some research on orbs, and they come in many ways. So you could have dead people appear as an orb. You could have alien type energies appear as an orb. You can have a thought form appear as an orb. And in instances like a battlefield, you could find a lot of orbs over a battleground site. Some could be the dead energies. Some are, we've seen little alien groups kind of on a, like a tour. It's hilarious to see what it's like to be human, to be dead. It's like they go on vacation and take an excursion just like we do. And really, if you think about it, things are messy, right? Life is messy. But what we're meant to do, in my opinion, is to clean it up, to gather your energy back. So it's leftover energy, you could say, that's on a battlefield. And the more you can, in your current life, do the shamanic ritual or habit of calling your energy back, becoming present, not leaving a part of you in the past, not being in the future, being right here, you see, then there aren't pieces floating around. Then there aren't ghosts around because you've called your energy back. You're in your current reality, and it's good. Now, we have seen clients create dead people for themselves, just like with your friend who she just was grieving. Well, she made a mess for herself, right? She liked it because she was feeling alone, and so she wants her brother, right? But she called it to herself. She created it. She needed to take responsibility for it and then say, okay, it's not fair to my brother for me to hold on to him. It's downright selfish, and I need to let him go. Right? I need to stop creating him more, because if you look at people who have died a while back, you can, by grieving, calling upon them, you can create more of their energy, because when you look at them individually, they may be completely drained and they're wanting so badly to move on. But a grieving person holds them and recreates them. So there are so many layers to it. And the more we can focus on be present, love yourself, be kind to others, let everybody gather their energy back, then life gets better, and then we won't have to be talking about ghosts, and then, there won't be haunted places anywhere because people will have made good of themselves. What do you have
that? That's great.
Yeah.
That's super good.
You have anything to offer?
I would just say that it is messy. We want to put them in nice, even boxes, but when you're talking about just like a piano, there's so many notes there. It's not just one note; it's many notes and many different songs. that's the way it is. And every time I try to put something into a box, it's like that box is shattered and going like, that's not the way it is. It's this way. So,
And then you get another box and
then
another
you get,
box
yeah,
and another box.
the goal is to come all out
I
of
got another
boxes.
kind. Got it.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I think that, of course, we're naturally going to continue to see phenomena. Hospitals are one of the nastiest, that are out there, that you are just hearing of all kinds of phenomena. Even people, they're sick and they see things in their room. I honestly think that these hospitals need to be blessed, at least, once a month. Just to help clear out, a lot of times people die in a hospital and they don't know they're dead. They're just wandering around out there wondering what the hell's going on. They think they're still alive. They're very confused. They're looking for their loved ones. They can't understand what has happened. And certainly not everybody's a medium or a channel or an energy worker, and that person may just keep wandering around the hospital, looking for their families. And, and of course, we often hear of spirits showing up at their own funerals, hear that all the time, but the thing is, I think that hot spots like graveyards, old burial grounds, hospitals, there were islands, like in Australia, where when people were actually dying of the plague, they were all taken there, to die. And those places are very, very haunted. Mental health institutions, mental health hospitals. Oh boy, do we got some great stories there that can go on. And some of them very unpleasant, that are picking up things that happened, some of the maybe some of the patients were not dealt with very well or even killed off, particularly the tuberculosis, time where, so many had that. And it was just taking so many lives. People can hear coughing in them and crying, these type of things. And I have to agree that let's clean up some of these messes. Let's just take responsibility. And maybe they should, really look at even, where they're at, even in their consciousness. You don't want to look at a hospital, this is just for sick people. Maybe if you look at it as a place for people getting well, it's a place for people recovering, it's a place for people that are going to be able to ascend and do better, But I think that, when you deal with so much tragedy, in these places, that there's always going to be a possibility of hauntings, of things going on. And this is where people like us kind of get called in to help out in these arenas.
Shirley, why don't so many of them just hang out like this and don't move on? Why are they not seeing the light or whatever it is that helps transition them to the other side?
I think there's several reasons. First of all, I think some of them think that they are sinners and they're afraid. They think that they're not going to go to the light. They think they're going to go somewhere else.
Doing it to themselves.
Yeah, in many ways. Or as Justin said, they're just hanging out, being, interacting with us and kind of chilling, that type of thing, so they hang around. I also think that energy can certainly pull spirits to a frequency, but they can go back to that other frequency, after we've, maybe communicated with them, because they've already been, they know the other side, they're able to go into those different realms. There are people that say there are different astral realms of the heavens. We should be, we should all convene and talk about that sometime as well, that there are definite, and I'm sure, I know, Anthony, with what you experienced, we know there are definite different realms in the astral when it comes to the heavens and otherwise. And that would be very interesting to put on the table as well. So there's still a lot of great mystery, but why do they hang around? There's a lot of reasons, but I do know to the light and they have gone. I've had spirits come to me and I don't know how to move on, like we've experienced,
Right.
and then we're able to do that. And there's those who definitely don't like the light. They like where they're at. And that's where you've got a whole different story that's going to come in. And that haunting takes on a completely different frequency and resonance and a different problem. And dealing with those are completely different than, just dealing with a spirit that's lost or wants to hang around or wants to shake your bed just to, have a little fun with you. Or, there's animal spirits. I had an animal spirit grab me once, it followed me from Peru. I went over to Peru. I was by Machu Picchu. And I was sleeping and I could hear paws running and something jumped on me and I was literally pulled out of my body and had a nice little, wrestling match with this panther. I don't even know what it was, but I finally got it to move on. But, the thing that was very interesting to me is I had a cat at the time that was in the dream with me and it was in the fight, which I found very interesting. And it scared off this animal spirit. My cat could see it and it ran away. But yeah, definitely animals can see things. We always see cats, doing these, dogs doing barking at things that aren't there. But I think animals are very, very psychic. They're intuitive. They're magical. They respond to frequency. They, and to them, it's all one world to them. We see it as separate worlds, but to them, it's one world. And maybe if we viewed it as one world instead of separate worlds, it would be a very different perspective in how we handled stuff.
And in general,
what's that?
In general, it seems like it's a lack of awareness on a part of a ghost. So if you're aware and you're meditating and you die in a state of contentment, right? You're not going to need to stick around to complete something because you feel complete.
Right.
Right? And other people, face it, most of humanity is a lot of, I'm trying to be nice, but a lot of people are a little bit brain dead, right?
Yeah.
They're not connected to their higher wisdom so much. They're moving around like an automaton. And so that's a lack of awareness. So when they die, they're a little bit like zombies. I see them so much. It's like they die, they go through a revolving door, and they just come back into another life. Now that
happens a lot.
Take much help. That was an unconscious act. But if they're more conscious and they're choosing, then they're not going to leave parts of themselves around as what people experience as ghosts. They're not going to bother people, right? So it just seems to me like the more you can meditate and love yourself and appreciate your world and clean up messes, then you're not going to be a ghost and there's not going to be leftover particles of you everywhere. I
agree. And I think that where we're really seeing it is when we see murders. There's definitely, when a person's been murdered, I would imagine they would be upset, angry, their life has been taken from them, so that's a mess out there waiting to be cleared and waiting to happen. And we've all dealt with those, with people who have been murdered. Each and every one of us know about them. They know what the kind of chaos that can create. And of course, Angelo on the Psychic Realm, who actually owns 8's and 8's, he has worked very diligently with crimes, Scotland Yard, and many has a very interesting history with helping with murders and being able to bring in very useful and helpful information. So that's another talk in itself. So I think there's still so much more to explore. And I got to tell you, I thank each and every one of you for coming on tonight. I think that these conversations have been outstanding. I have been incredibly impressed, and I'm really proud of myself for bringing you guys on. So I hope you know that. And we will convene again. We will convene again, and we'll probably switch in and out of the Psychic Realm as well. We're doing that also. So anyway, let's get some contact information. MaryAnn, why don't you go first?
I have a YouTube channel now called The Shadow of a Baseman, where I have some interviews regarding the book, and some of these interviews where I've been on this channel before and added them. I'm on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, but we do have a Facebook group for the book, The Shadow of a Baseman, as well. So, and also
Super.
shadowofabasement@gmail.com if somebody wants to email us. The book's
It's a great book. It's an
Amazon.
outstanding book.
It's on Amazon for anybody who would like to learn more about the Beatles, because we say it's layered. If you like a good murder mystery, it's a layered book. It's a good read. If you want to have Beatle knowledge and a murder mystery, and you want to find out about the clues that were left, it's there. But if you really want to find out what we think happened, then it's also there.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Justin, how do we get a hold of you? Oh, go ahead, Caroline. Are you fizzing out there?
Yeah, my phone is run down because we've got a power outage.
Okay, go ahead and give your contact information, and if you got to go, yeah, it's okay.
CarolineOceanaRyan.com. You can reach me at ascensiontimes@gmail.com. And I do channeling sessions. And thank you so much for having me on, Shirley. And
oh God, you'll be back. You'll be back. Thank you. All right, Justin, how do we get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can find me, I've got all sorts of social media accounts. I list everything on my Linktree. So if you're familiar with Linktree, the URL is linktr.ee and then /JC33. So that's my Linktree, and it's got all of my social media links on there. I post most often on my YouTube channel, Wandering Toward Truth. But I've got Telegram, Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff. But the Linktree is the easiest place to find me. I also put a lot of good movies and books and other fun things on my Linktree as well.
Very fun. Yeah, he's got very interesting stuff, Justin. I know it's just a vessel of knowledge there. Anthony, how do we get a hold of you?
Well, I sound like I'm the original Luddite of this group, and that I resist technology, but I am on Facebook. You can contact me that way. I have discontinued my website for the time being, but you can still contact me through Anthony.Quinata, QUINATA @hotmail.com.
All right, super. And Anne and Greg?
You can find us at gointuition.com. And also we have a school where we train hypnotherapy, which is transpersonalhypnotherapy.com. And I'm Ann Salisbury, and that's Greg Meyerhoff, and we're on LinkedIn as well. So, but really going through our websites and contacting us that way is the best. And we'd love to hear from anyone who has questions, because we love answering and connecting. So.
All righty then. Thank you. Well, I'm Shirley Bolstok. I am the host of 8's and 8's. It's owned by Angela DeSophia of the Psychic Realm. And what I can say is I'm on Activate. That's my website. And of course, you can reach me at poet444@gmail.com. So coming to you from 8's and 8's, we are, you are, I am, Activate. Thank you again.
Thank you, Shirley. It's been a lot of fun.
Yes, it has.
Thank you, Shirley.
You're very welcome. Great. We'll convene again. All right.
Awesome.
Good night. Good night.
Good night. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
It's nice meeting all of you.
Nice to meet you too.
Bye.